As spring transpired, the landscape and happenings in and around the ecosystem pond unfolded in ways that couldn't have been imagined. Non-stop rains inspired hundreds of frogs to invade the waters to reproduce. Symphonies of spring peepers and American toads sounded each evening, with a great tree frog joining them later on. There was no documented success of the peepers, but at least 9 pairs of toads bred. This resulted in upwards of 180,000 eggs being scattered around, with some already emerging as tadpoles. Meanwhile, I began addressing some of the landscaping around the outside too. As I did, a pair of eastern phoebe raised a few eggs just above. However, one belonged to a brown-headed cowbird who tampered with their nest. They unknowingly raised this parasite as their own. It outcompeted their brood, eventually leaving them with an empty nest, which is where the previous episode concluded. Nature may appear brutal sometimes, but life often develops unexpectedly, and things are not always as they seem. Eastern phoebe nests are often targeted by cowbirds, and they must know it. Although they may appear helpless, these monogamous birds in fact have a built-in failsafe for scenarios just like this. The ability to produce 2 broods each season. I was hopeful for their potential redemption, but only time would tell if they'd lay again. For now, they were enjoying the tail end of the spring rains. They weren't the only ones either. The deer often passed through during these rains, grazing on foliage along the edge of the woodline. These downpours were persistent and strong, continuing for many days. The grass and plants in the surrounding area really appreciated this. All this water gave them the strength to continue developing, which further helped with the previous runoff issues. The lone gray tree frog that migrated to the pond earlier seemed to like the rain as he hid within the lily. Only now he was no longer alone. There was competition. The banter ended shortly after this, though. It wasn't until the following day that something truly amazing occurred. Seemingly out of nowhere, gray tree frogs were everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Unlike the others before them, these frogs had the freedom to climb and stick to whatever surfaces they wanted. Many were on rocks, a few near the water, and others on driftwood. There were even 2 pairs already in amplexus. Compared to previous species, it was surprising to see how much more balanced the male-to-female ratio was. That said, such a meetup only occurred on this night, so perhaps they showed up all at once rather than over a period of time. Again, you can see just how remarkable their camouflage is. Wouldn't you say they all resemble the appearance of lichen or moss? As the males called out, the females were carefully assessing their options. This one specifically was very particular. Initially, she was lured in by this one near the intake bay. After some thought though, she determined he wasn't right and returned to the waters. She then climbed up this rock and began staring at this one for a while. It looked promising, but she rejected him too. That's because this one on the rock behind them caught her attention, but not for long. The previous male ended up being right after all, and she accepted his embrace. This all continued well into the evening. It was very special to me. I'd only seen these frogs a handful of times in my entire life prior to this spring. Yet here I was, only feet from my house, surrounded by a symphony of froggy trills. It was music to my ears. This evening and the many before it serve as a testament to how remarkable frogs are. Their fine-tuned senses allow them to locate water, sometimes traveling miles to get there. What a way to end the season of frogs. Unfortunately for the tree frogs, their eggs just so happen to resemble floating fish food on the water's surface. Although I never saw any, I think it's safe to assume the fish ate them. Sad to say the least, but they should have better arrangements next year. Now that the migratory frogs were done with the pond, the resident green frogs appeared at ease within the newfound silence. I was finally able to work in peace now, too. I didn't have to worry about potentially harming anything because the green frogs pretty much just stick to the water. Anyway, this platform required drainage. A simple French drain was sufficient to ensure excess water wouldn't sit around and make the dirt all soupy. Above this, I added a layer of geotextile to mitigate erosion. Layering rocks above this would further help with that. The look I was going for would be solidified with pavers and mulch. It's awesome finally starting to see some of the dirt disappear. This thing has just been a mud pit for, I don't know, however long now. Tired of seeing it, so to see some of the landscape filling together is awesome. A little bit of work to do there still, but this whole area here, I gotta raise it up like I did that. And it's a hot day, so gotta get to work. Hauling countless wheelbarrows full of dirt through this heat was a challenge, but necessary because this lower platform had to be raised about 10 inches. I packed it down and added geotextile around the edges before sending the French drain through this area. Just like the upper layer, I added more geotextile and a covering of rocks. Funny enough, the Phoebe really appreciated the adjustments I made to the landscape. The top of the swinging bench became one of their favorite perches while they tracked insects. It and the weeping cherry gave a perfect line of sight to their nest, where they were roosting at once more. In the week since being bested by the cowbird, they carefully spruced up their nest before giving things a second try. They began laying once more. While these eggs were being laid, new life emerged from old ones. In the days and weeks leading up to this, the remainder of the tadpoles were developing in their eggs. As they began emerging, they were quite small and not adept at swimming. Meanwhile, the ones from before were much larger. Every square inch of the pond was inevitably swarmed with tadpoles, a remarkable sight indeed. However, it created an issue. They liked resting within the algae which was beginning to form again. I wanted so badly to remove it, but not to their detriment. So I decided to wait for their metamorphosis to complete first. Also, the dam and the wetlands intended to preserve their location failed. Despite my initial concerns though, they managed to end up in the other pooling areas without being harmed. Their presence was also very apparent at night. It was one thing to know that thousands of tadpoles inhabit these waters, but it was another to see them. They would typically feed on algae or swim around with the fish. Together against the backdrop of the nightlight, they created an otherworldly display. Meanwhile, the green frogs looked over it all, happy to have reclaimed their pond. Since I couldn't address the algae just yet, I was only able to add the annual plants, impatiens and papyrus to be specific. I thoroughly removed the soil and everything from their roots before peppering them throughout the landscape, which added nice pops of color. The fish are always curious about anything I do around the pond, and this was no exception. You'll see that the iris and many other flowers were in bloom too. Although these plants would help with filtration, it would take much more to make a difference. Part of the reason why I raised the ground was to create another seating area. This one would consist of a configuration of posts that I set in the ground with concrete. I continued the fabric and gravel around them before topping it all with pea pebbles. Hauling material up the slope to this area made everything a challenge. It might have been fine if it was just a few trips, but I had to do this hundreds of times to raise the dirt and achieve the desired effect. I didn't only want seats here though. I found a few stumps on the property that would allow me to integrate more plants. I broke up as much dirt on them as possible with the pick and removed the rest with the pressure washer. I knew I wanted a stump here, and it was only a matter of getting the right configuration. It began getting dark as I finished this up, so I took the opportunity to line up the posts with the laser level. While doing all of that, I kept hearing faint little chirps, which could only mean one thing: the Phoebe eggs were hatching. She managed to lay 5 healthy eggs, which thankfully went undisturbed. They were carefully incubated until the babies entered the world, calling out for their parents. They flew around the pond and surrounding area for weeks, feverishly collecting insects to feed the brood. Slowly but surely they developed into young, healthy nestlings. Although the cowbird didn't return to foil this development, and the babies were free to grow without parasitic competition, a new danger would soon present itself. Observing new life emerge above and within the waters was exciting, but their journeys into this world were only just beginning, and they weren't alone. More creatures were about to descend upon the lands. I had to make serious adjustments before that could occur, causing things to change drastically and for the better. All of that and more as this ecosystem continues to develop. See you next time, Serpa Squad.